It says you're live, and thus I am. Welcome to Guitar Talk, the weekly, nearly weekly guitar get together with me and usually Gary sitting next to me. Except today, Gary bugged out. So Gary had to. Gary worked 17 hours yesterday moving, and he just had to call in tired. So I called some other co-hosts. They couldn't make it either. I was like, well, do I cancel it or do I try to make it happen? I was like, the show must go on. So I'm going to at least try to do a bit of the show just by myself. It's lonely here by myself, but if any regulars out there chime in and say hi, that would be helpful. Give me 1 second. I don't mean to be ill-prepared, but also had a long day. So the way this goes is we usually chit-chat, and then you ask questions, and then we chit-chat about your questions, and then you make comments on what we said, and then it goes back and forth, and it's a fun kind of dialogue, good time, hangout time. I'm booting up my tablet too now. So I do have a couple little things to start off with while we're waiting for people to show up. Also, the announcement post was lost, and so I had to start a fresh stream. So that's going to get a little weird too. So if you're out there, just chime in and say hi. Let me know you're there. That way, I know I'm not just talking into the nothingness. And my tablet is dying. Let's see here. Hold on. Sorry, folks. Welcome to the worst episode of Guitar Talk from Gary's Guitars. Yeah, just a little started late, and my other tablet died, so now I got to steal this tablet. And I said chime in and say hi, and I meant it, but now I got to open up my tablet to see who's out there talking. There it is. I'm going to turn that down. Paul and Bob and William from Wisconsin. Okay, got some regulars out there. Thank goodness. So once again, Gary couldn't make it today. He was moving, and he was just super tired and just called in sick, kind of. And then I called Peter Squires. He's a regular, fill-in, and he can't make it, and a bunch of people. So I thought, well, I'll just get, my two choices were give up or press on. So there's a couple of things that I would like to talk about today, so that's good. We've got a few people out there. That's good as well. The now weekly tube update from our friends at Electro-Harmonics. We expect tubes in about a week or so. So they said some of the boxes were missing because I think they got them handed through another company in order to make it happen. But they got a bunch of tubes coming in, and so the tube crisis is just about over, folks. Do not buy overpriced tubes. And then there's two other things I'd like to talk about that were fresh on my mind. So it really is good to have a person sitting here to kind of be a foil, even though it makes it a little less lonely. So, but here's something I want to talk about. And I should have prepared this, I suppose, but here's a guitar. This happens here in the store a lot. This happens when I'm on stage at gigs with some real kind of just, people have been doing this forever. This is something that happens a lot, so I wanted to address it. You got a Snark tuner here, though. Doesn't matter which tuner you're using. Turn on my tuner. And you might do this, and if you do this, do not feel self-conscious about it or any of that stuff. But this is not how you tune. And here's the reason why. It used to be electronic tuners were really insensitive, and they didn't hear anything. So you would actually literally have to wail on your string to make it make a loud noise the whole time. Now tuners are much better. When you play the note, your note bends a little bit. The fact that you're hitting the note makes it go a little sharp, and it settles in and sustains on its true sound. But if you're wailing on the string, you're just bending that note in and out of tune while you're wailing on it. So when you're tuning a guitar, hit the string, let it sustain, and tune to that sustaining note. So that other A that I tuned when I tuned the A by wailing on it, now it's coming up as sharp. Whoop, no. And here's the other tuning tip. Go below the note and come up to it. Kind of the opposite that you would do on a piano, really. Because the reason for that is there can be some slack in this area when you're loosening. So you loosen. You ever notice this? You start to loosen the string, and kind of nothing happens for a second, and then it loosens. That's because you're just getting a little bit of resistance in the nut, and it's binding a little bit. And the way around that, and the way to know that, is you yank on your string, and now it's a half step down. So we were just getting a little bit of extra resistance there. And when you tune up to the note, then as this tightens with it. On both sides of the nut, you'll be tight on both sides. And that makes it go into tune and stay in tune better. So just something that came up today, sitting in the store. Someone started tuning a guitar. They're doing this thing. That note's bending all over the place. It's not a consistent sound. Play the note, tune to it, and then move on. So, once again, folks out there, Gary couldn't make it today. I'm here by myself. It's awfully lonely in here, so please do chime in the room. Talk to me about what you want to talk about. Talk to me about, put that over there for now. If things get really desperate, I'll start singing folk songs, so I'll be careful. Talk to me. That's the other thing about having someone in the room with you. You know if you're being funny or not. Mike's here. Mike from Hungary. Yeah, as I was saying, Gary's not here. He was moving. 17 hours of moving yesterday. He said he's not coming into work today at all. Not for guitars, not for the show. In the 30 years he owned the store, he had one unexcused absence. He was sick once. Other than that, he took a vacation once in a while, and he always came to work. So he is a little beat. You're never alone. Well, thank you, Bob. Thanks for hanging out. Maybe I should have called you to come in and be the guest host. Get a regular in there. Show us a guitar. Yeah, I'll definitely do that in a bit. Because there's a few very interesting guitars to talk about here, and that would be a good way to pass the time. So, William, stay tuned. We'll do that. Good evening, JJ UK. London calling. That's nice to see you out there. And once again, I'm just saying it again, Gary couldn't make it today. I'm here by myself. So leave questions and comments in the room so I know what to talk about. But if you want to talk about some guitars, two things I want to talk about. In particular, and so Mike, who's out there in Hungary, our friend Mike, he'd given up working on guitars as far as I can remember. I don't know if he started again, but he left all of his tools here. So if he has started again. But what I will say is there are this really interesting material that's become available for frets. It's this thing they call the Evo frets. It's an alloy that was made for people who are allergic to nickel. And specifically, it was made for eyeglasses. Because, if you have an allergy to nickel and there's, the screws in your glasses and all that, and it's so close to your face all the time, it's just, it's going to cause a problem. So this alloy got invented. What is the alloy exactly? I don't know the chemical makeup of the alloy myself right now. But they're now using it as a fret material. It is stronger than nickel, but it is not as strong as that stainless steel. So the benefit is stainless steel is great. Stainless steel is harder than your string. So basically, if you have a nickel string and a nickel fret, they'll both just wear on each other until they wear out. And so usually the strings wear out before the frets. But if your frets are soft enough, frets are wearing out a lot faster than they used to. So stainless steel is a lot harder than nickel. That means you will never... It would be very hard to wear through those frets. I never say never. But it's a lifetime fret job. But the stainless steel changes the nature of your guitar. Hello, William. I'm here alone talking and looking at the chat. So cut me some slack, folks. So talking about these Evo frets that I just put in this Taylor. So stainless steel, they're hard as can be, but it does change the tone of your instrument a little bit. And I've seen it be a positive thing. And I've seen it like, man, I can tell this was probably better without the stainless steel frets. But, and as you guys know, Scott from Stonewall Instruments, who used to do a lot of work for us, big proponent of stainless steel. They're great on electric guitars, especially. And, he learned his guitar trade in LA where people were shredding and tapping. And, it's great for that kind of playing. It's great for players who we recommended them for Dave Gerard and a few other players around here who are just play so constantly that they were going through frets every year. But it just was, super inconvenient. So what I decided to do was try out these Evo frets. If you look at them, they kind of look a little coppery. They're a little more copper than you would expect the nickel frets to be. I did a little before and after, as much as you could do, because to refret a guitar, it takes a long time. But I did really pay attention to the sound before and after to see if the sound had changed. Now, a fret job is kind of like open heart surgery. You are going to, it's going to change something, even if you put everything back exactly the way it was. And so guitars always have just a 3 to 5% sound difference, hopefully an improvement after a refret. As you folks know, that I play guitar left-handed. A lot of people know that. So this would be if it was right-handed. But I'm playing with my thumb as well, so it wouldn't be that loud, and I can't really play like this. So what I do is I can play a right-handed guitar upside down to some degree, enough to test them, demonstrate them. But this is not how my guitars are strung, so I don't have a lot of experience in that. It makes it brighter. So in this case, the stainless steel makes it much brighter. In this case, there probably is a touch more brightness because these are harder frets. I wouldn't say the sound is that different. I would say that this guitar now, with these fresh frets in here, and with just inserting the fresh frets into the fingerboard changes the nature of the fingerboard a little bit too. Non-factory frets often too, because factory frets get pressed in that first time, usually not glued, And when we refret, we use glue as well, so it creates less space inside there because you've now hammered things in twice. And we use essentially super glue, CA glue, and which more than being a glue that attaches two things, it soaks into the wood and makes the wood swell a little bit to really make it grab the fret. I mean, it does glue metal to wood, kind of, but more of what it does is it soaks into the wood and makes it just swell up that little bit to grab on. And so the reason I wanted to show you this is you should try this Taylor out. It's a the model 210 from 2007. It's a nice Taylor. We use Taylors that usually don't sit here for that long, but you can also try it out as an example of those Evo frets and see if you like it. So I'll set this down right here for now. And let me check in with the room. So just to recap, for those who weren't here, Gary is absent today. He is an excused absence because he's moving. He said he spent 17 hours moving yesterday, and he's just not coming to work today. So let me catch up here. Just referred my 59 Telly with Fender frets, good wire, better than Dunlop I used 30 years ago. You know what? Speaking of frets, Mike, I remember that you and Chris Pern used Dunlop fret wire, and when we became a Dunlop dealer, I was like, send me some of that fret wire. And I got it, and I didn't like it. And I ended up giving it to someone. I like the StewMac wire better, and I'll have you know, to work with this stuff, these Evo frets, is great. Because the fret really keeps its shape when you're pressing it in, and there's none of that weird, like every once in a while if you it can manipulate the fret. I like to kind of overspring the fret a little bit and then sink it right in, and then apply that pressure in the middle and get that downward pressure on the ends and really get it in there tight. So I kind of bend the fret ahead of time to be a little over radiused, and then get it in there. These frets these frets went in really well. I'll definitely say that. So yeah, the Fender fret wire is probably good. Like you said, the Dunlop stuff. We're a Dunlop dealer. I love just about everything Dunlop does. I love the MXR pedals. I'm using my whole life. I love. I like their electric strings. But the Dunlop wire, I was psyched to try some out because, like I said, I remember that Mike used it and Chris Pern, our luthier who served here for quite a few years, used it. But I would say that is. I like working with the Evo, first of all, and that your hypothesis that the Fender fret wire is better, it could be true. Definitely. Any advice for working with an older songwriter who takes the worst advice from his friends? Oh, this is a good one. Working with an older songwriter who takes the worst advice from his friends. So, if Gary were here, I could say this more diplomatically because Gary is of the baby boom, and so is Mike, who's out there, and Bob, and a lot of our friends here. And so there is a kind of thing where baby boomers kind of trust each other more than they trust us Generation Xers or millennials, for that sake. And we take bad advice our whole life, and we take it to heart sometimes. So that is interesting. I mean, working with an older songwriter who takes the worst advice from his friends. Because it is like a psychological approach. And the worst advice in the songwriting. Wow. Anyone out there who can kind of chime in on that one? Because I can chime in a bit, but man, it's going to be like very meta. I'm a meta kind of guy anyways. It's going to be on this big level of like, our willingness to take bad advice stems from the fact that we have this voice in our head that gives us bad advice all day, every day. The voice in your head. That thing that Neil, the comedian who worked with Dave Chappelle, Neil Brennan said, if the voice in your head was a friend of yours, you wouldn't be their friend. they'd be a toxic friend. You'd be like, stop talking to me like this. And so you have that voice in your head that gives yourself bad advice all day. Don't do this. And, like doubting yourself and all that stuff. And that, if you really pay attention to that voice, that's what makes you listen to other people's bad advice, because you're constantly giving yourself bad advice from this voice in your head. So that's the first thing to tackle. Is make sure you're really, to get good advice, you have to be willing to accept good advice. Reasoning might have something to do with it. Let's leave that question like dangling in the area a little bit. From JJ in the UK, neck resets. I'm wondering whether to do a neck reset on my old Levin LT3, which I bought in 1967. Worth it, or leave the old box alone? That's a good question too, because neck resets, if done right, if your instrument needs it, they can be great. Because this is what's happened over the years. You probably lowered your saddle to get your action playable, and now you're to the point where it can't go down anymore. So your neck angle has been changing over time, and the neck reset will enable you to put that saddle back up to the height it's supposed to be at, increasing the downward pressure on the top of the guitar and improving your tone. So that's something to consider. Just make sure the person doing the neck reset is really good at doing it. We luckily have a guy here who's really good at doing it. We've been really happy with the results that he's been getting, because it's a little complicated. It's not just taking it off and putting it back on. There's compound angles in there, and you got to shim stuff, and you got to get, basically it's got to, when neck gets mashed up to the body, you should be able to string up the guitar and play it with no glue in it. That joint has to be tight. And then if your guitar's from 67, it may be together with hide glue, so make sure you switching to a tight bond or something like that would give you tonal changes, or dare I say, a modern glue, like epoxy or something. Don't let them do that. Stick with, if your guitar is made with traditional glue and you like the sound of that guitar, do not change your glue. So yes, there is a little danger in it, but I'd say 67, it might be time for a neck reset, and then for the rest of your life, you're going to have a good time. That guitar is going to sound great. I have a Harmony that Peter did, a Harmony 12-string. That Peter, who works for the store here, did for me. And man, that's just a magical sounding guitar. I'm glad. I mean, it worked before he did the neck reset. I've done neck resets, probably about 6 or 8 of them, but I usually do them when I can look at a neck reset and know when it's one I got to give to another guy. I don't really do them for customers as much, unless it's just a sad luck instrument, or these Harmony guitars that I love that aren't even worth the cost of the neck reset. However, some, because it compounds with it, you have let's look at this here. So what often happens is the whole neck block and everything will dive up this way a little bit. You get this little sag right around the sound hole, and you get the little bridge rotation. And those are all things that are very typically going on here. And part of the neck reset is when you have that degradation at the top, taking off the neck and putting it back on at a more of an angle will put the neck back to where it should have been. And then, like I said, enabling your saddle to be at the right height. Just putting things kind of back, even though the entire guitar isn't being put to right, because you're not going to be able to reflatten that top. It's going to help. So let me just catch up on here. True, but we're stuck with ourselves. Oh, talking about the voice in our head. I am thinking of a neck reset on my Yamaha S50 Classical, mid-60s. Not sure about the cost, though. So right now, because the cost of everything's going up, right now here at the store, a neck reset is $500. 20 years ago, it was half that. 15 years ago, it's just, that's what he charges. And and Mike Endicott out there can vouch for me on this. There is nobody who does this work who is wealthy, unless how to be a millionaire in guitar lutherie. Start with 2 million. That's the old joke. It's just time-consuming stuff, and there's no one who's doing this work. Even if there's like $500 for a neck reset, man, that's a lot of money. It really isn't, because the guy who's doing this work is driving a 20-year-old Nissan and living in a rented apartment. No one's getting rich doing this. It may seem like a lot of money, but it isn't, because it's a lot of work and a lot of responsibility. And sometimes you have to, when you put things back together and it's not right, you got to start over. And just with like making, because with the neck reset, you're gonna make a new saddle. You don't want to shim, the saddle. You can, but like like a one big new piece of bone that that's what you want. And if you're making a saddle and you mess up, you go too far, you put that one in the box of things that you hope you'll use someday and never will, and you start making another saddle. And there's an hour of your life that's just gone. And you can't bill for it because you just made a mistake. And that kind of liability is part of what makes neck resets expensive. So your Yamaha is probably worth about what the neck reset's going to cost. And if someone offers you to do it for less, they're not going to do a good job. So I'd say go ahead and do it. I've spoken here in the past about the Yamaha red label, Yamaha fetish world. People love these old Yamahas, but man, they all need neck resets. So if you see one that doesn't have a neck reset and you're thinking of buying it, just pencil in the neck reset. They all need neck resets. I did neck resets for $35 in the mid-'70s. Yes. And did you do the saw blade neck reset? That was you add a zero and you get today's prices and then plus some inflation. And that's why Mike stopped doing lutherie and started building custom kitchens and baths, because he was sick of being poor. Holy hand grenades. Let's see here. Doing any thoughts of? All right, let me catch up here with the room. Is it just me, or do any of you go through ebbs and flows, creatively writing, wanting to pick up the guitar and play? I'd say that happens to me all the time. So not just you. And then Holy hand grenades chimed in, and then let's see, $500. Yeah, that's what it is here. I don't know what it is in London, but if you're in London, everything costs more in London, doesn't it? You can send it to Hungary, and Mike will do it for $35. Thanks. The Yamaha was a reverb impulse buy. I won't buy non-truss rod guitars online again. It's just okay. So this will actually get me back to this Yamaha thing. By the way, we're halfway through, so I got to do the halfway through. Welcome. This is Guitar Talk, where we talk about guitars. There's usually me sitting with Gary here. Gary's not here tonight. I couldn't get a guest host in time. I decided just to go ahead and do it. So I'm talking too much. My throat's dry. I'm spitting stuff out here, but I'm here for you, and I'm glad you guys are here, guys and gals, are here for me too, and hanging out. Just trying to keep this tradition and, keep it as weekly as possible, So, the Yamaha was a reverb impulse buy. You see a red label Yamaha. The price seems good. You're like, oh, man, those things are beautiful. I had one of those when I was a kid. That thing was so good. And then you get a couple drinks in you, and it's reverb, and it's 11:30 at night. Next thing you know, it's on its way via FedEx. It happens, I'd say once a month, twice a month. Someone walks in the store and says, I found this great red label Yamaha guitar. I played it. It sounds great, but can you lower the action? It's a big sigh. I sigh. I try not to sigh too hard, but I just know what I'm going to see. I'm going to open that case. I'm going to see a guitar that needs a neck reset, because all red label Yamaha guitars need a neck reset. Hear me now, believe me later. But yeah, it's a bunch of money, so you really gotta love the sound of that instrument, or just hold on to it till it's worth. I was talking to someone about this in a real estate way. If you think you pay too much, just wait a year, because this inflation is going nuts, and the cost of everything's going up. And right now, that red label Yamaha Classical might only be worth $400. But if you wait a few years, it's going to be worth more than the neck reset too. So some people just hold on to the stuff, and it's playable for now, anyways, probably. And being a classical guitar, the neck, having high action isn't necessarily the end of the world. Okay, so back to catching up with the room. Doing great solo. Yeah, okay, thanks. So if you could have your dream guitar with no budget given to you, what would it be? Well, I'm pretty lucky to own some dreamy guitars, and I came across them in strange ways. One of my favorite guitars is my Archtop K. It has a de-arming pickup on it that was added later. It originally had brass frets, but it had been refretted by Chris Pern, our luthier here, years ago, and he did a little other work. He really got it playing great. It sounds great. It plays great. That pickup must be 12K. The pickup is twice as loud as anything. It could be 20K, Ryan. That pickup is just, so basically you plug it into an amp that you usually have on 5, you're going to put it on 3. And it has such a bold sound, no cutaway. It had a neck reset, like all Ks need. And I put a Tunematic bridge on it. Anyways, it turned out to be a great guitar. Everyone loves to hear it and see it. I love to play it. It's become kind of a backdoor dream guitar. It wouldn't be what I set out to buy, but I got it because I liked it and it was cheap and I got it fixed up. And so we talk about that kind of dream guitar. But I also have a little bit of a dream guitar conundrum. So when we became a Fender dealer and I was shaking hands on it, I was like, by the way, when the time comes, I want a really good deal on a guitar for myself. Right? And our sales guy was like, oh, yeah, we'll fix you up. Don't you worry. You just tell us what you want, and we'll make sure you get the best possible, So I had that kind of ace in the hole. And so now I can order my ultimate Fender guitar. It can be custom shop. It can be, whatever it is. I can get my ultimate Fender guitar. And what's it going to be? And, so that's a conundrum because it's been 3 years and I've never ordered one for myself. I have the Highway 1 Stratocaster, which I've talked about here before. It was a cheap USA made Fender. It still has the crappy tuners on it that they all had in the late 90s, early 2000s, mostly early 2000s. I just haven't changed them. I'll probably put better tuners someday. They're okay. They work, but they do fail a little too often, and they're just a little. They're not. Fender uses different tuners now. They're just not up to snuff. And it has this low luster finished body, one color. And someone might have swapped the pickups. And it's a left-handed guitar that I went to. I was like, I had all these intonation problems, and then I went to I got to work on this thing. Put it on the bench, and someone played it right-handed for years because all the frets where a D chord would be on the right-handed side. The frets weren't worn where the D chord is on the left-handed side. They were worn, on the thick strings so someone played it right-handed and just kind of messed up the frets in the opposite way you'd think. So I did a level and crown. Anyways, that's my Fender Strat. That's the first Strat I've ever really liked. And that's a tough question about the ultimate guitar because I have an opportunity. I have an opportunity to order my, just an ultimate Fender. I would say maybe a Les Paul custom from the 70s, early 70s. I'm not going to say 59. That's crazy. But, yeah. My brother has an early 1970 or 71 Les Paul custom. And that's always been my benchmark for what a great Les Paul is. So I'll mention that. I dream of a dream guitar all the time. The Armands were wound with 48 gauge wire, almost invisible. Okay, so they used a very thin wire, and they must have used a whole lot of it in that DeArmond pickup. Because, man, that thing is just has crazy output, and in a good way too. Not like sometimes you get because it's a single coil as well. Sometimes you get those screaming hot pickups, and you just can't do anything with them because your amp, the way it's driving your amp with that super high impedance, is just becomes a little too metal or something. But no, this is a work of art. This one. I brought a Pro 2 Strat this week. Brilliant. Yes, the Pro 2. Fender's killing it. I've said it before. A lot of their new guitars are great. Even their Player Series, Player Plus, all fine, They are doing a better job than ever on some of these guitars. There's materials concerns because it's just the materials are hard to get. The great wood has been used already is the thing. And so by getting the Ultra or the higher series, you get a more select materials, and that can make a difference. Like I said, I suspect they grade their woods and then decide which bodies are for which guitars. And what's the one guitar that got away? That's a good question. Okay, did the Highway one have a nitro finish? It might be a nitro finish because there's not a lot of finish on it, and yeah, it's definitely not that shiny. So I would have to. Yeah, I never really analyzed it much looking at it, but I'd have to guess yes. One awesome perk, you can have your own custom Dream Fender. Yeah, I guess that is. Hey, Mark, what's the one that got away? The one that got away. Not a lot of them get away from me. I'll tell you about the one that got away. It's a funny story. Hopefully, this will be funny. Aircraft Music in Dover is owned by Brian Fisher. I'll make a video with him someday. He's a controversial guy. I just said his name. You don't say it 3 times in the mirror, or he suddenly appears and then takes your guitar for $100. But he's definitely a force to be reckoned with. He's the biggest collector of guitars in the Northeast, I think. And every once in a while, he would put one of something out of his collection into the store. I walked into a store one day, and this was back in the late 90s, and there was a Fender 1963 Fender Precision bass, and it was $3,000. And for me in the late 90s, $3,000 might have been $300,000 because I ain't got it. I had I didn't have $3 on me probably at the time, and I looked, and it was in a glass case, and it was this really nice blue, faded blue. It might have been refinished, but then faded, And I was just kind of just looking at it, and maybe I went a couple times and looked at it. So that would have been the one that got away. But here's the interesting part of the story. I was walking across the parking lot here at Gary's Guitar. So yeah, it was here in this location. So it must have been very early 2000s, 99, 2000. I was walking across the parking lot, and I saw this bank, this one of those bank deposit envelope things, with a zipper on it. And it said Fleet Bank on it. And there was no one around. And I reached down and picked it up. I brought it into the store, opened it up, looked inside. There was $3,000 in that bag. And it said Fleet Bank on it, so who cares about Fleet Bank? But then I was flipping, and I was like, about $3,000 in there. And then and there's the receipts from the appliance store that used to be 2 doors down. This was their week's deposit. And I was like, now I know whose money it is. I got to give it back. So it was a Saturday afternoon or something. I called the police, and they came, and I handed him the bag. He opens it up, and he's like, there's $3,000 in here. I'm like, yeah, I know. Because that's exactly what that bass I want at Aircraft Music costs. I didn't say that out loud, but that was a moral moment for me. And so he's like, okay, and so he returned it to them. They were so happy. They every time they saw me, they waved and said hello, and then they went out of business a couple years later. And then then it turns out I knew the guy who got the bass. So he was a student of Ray Lassonde, who's out there sometimes in the YouTube world. He's in Manchester, Concord, sorry, and a bass student here at the store. And it comes in, and he has. I was like, oh my god, that bass is beautiful. I remember when that bass was for sale at Aircraft, and I wanted to buy it. Congratulations, you got a great bass in the car. And so, a couple years later, I ran into that same guy. I can't remember his name now. And I was like, hey, how's that Fender bass? And he goes, oh, I lost it in a house fire. Yep, house burnt down, and the bass went with it, which is super sad. But maybe I avoided a curse. Maybe if I went and bought that Fender bass with that dirty money, stolen money, found money. It's not stolen if you just found it, I guess. But with that dubious money, that maybe the bass was cursed, and maybe something would have happened to me. So I'm going to say that is the one that got away. Unfortunately, it got away from everyone because it died in the fire. But luckily, no one died in the fire. I didn't ask if anyone. And all's well that ends well. I do not have a 63P bass, but I bought one for the guy who plays bass with me, and that's a whole other story. So that's story time. The one that got away. I got a 78 custom. Of course, I want a Jazzmaster. Grass is always greener. Yeah, of course. I have 20-something guitars, and I want some of these guitars right now. Great story. A monkey's paw, yeah. My one that got away was a 57 Les Paul Jr. Yeah, there was something like that in my history too. There was a Les Paul. What it was it? And this is I don't know. Let's see. Do we still have people watching after all these stories? It was at Guitar Warehouse, the other big store, actually where Gary started at Guitar Warehouse, and in the 80s, and Mike was working there, and Rod Wells is a regular around here these days. He used to own that store, and lots of stories about that too. But they had a 50-something Les Paul, the double cutaway Les Paul, that someone converted to left-handed, and so they kind of ruined it. And it was like $1,200, and I could have bought it, but it was the 80s. I had no money, and now that same guitar, even in its butchered state, because when they converted, they moved the knobs. That's the one thing that you don't want to do, and they filled the old holes and stuff. And it could be converted back and whatever, but I would have just played it the way it was. And so that is a one that got away too. But all the guitars in the 80s, they were all cheap, folks. I know some of you were there. 51 Esquire, Dead Mint, was in the case at Daddy's in Salem in 1975 for $199. I passed on it because it had only one pickup. That is a good one. Yeah. Who wants that thing? It's only got one pickup. A friend had a 76 jazz bass and sold it way too cheap because he left it in the trunk and the clear coat cracked. And yes, it was a lefty. Yeah. So, yeah, we can all, those of us we can all lament about those days when everything cost a whole lot less. Trade a 66 Mustang for a 64 Falcon. Are you talking about cars there, Bob, or are you talking about guitars? Because there is a Mustang guitar. But so let me just put this back for a second and talk to you about one other guitar. Bourgeois, made in Maine. This is a custom country boy, AT Adirondack top. Dana Bourgeois is the maker. These guitars are incredible. We have one here used. It's a little out of tune there, but This is on the wall next to our HT28 Martin, and the HT28 Martin sounds like at a Yamaha next to it. No, there's some better Yamahas up there. It pales in comparison to this guitar. This is a handmade, made in Lewiston, Maine guitar. If you don't know about Bourgeois guitars, check them out. Of course, they're made in the Martin style. If you're thinking about a Collins, definitely check these out as well. They're kind of the same price, but handmade in a small shop. Just endlessly impressive. This particular one was factory refretted recently. This belonged to someone who was an endorsee, and so he had all the work, and he was a Maine artist. He had the work done. Any work that was done on this was done at their shop. These things it's impossible on this camera and this out of tune guitar to really hear how incredible this is. But it is an amazing guitar. So if you come by the store, definitely take it for a spin because it's something to be experienced. If you are in the market for a seriously high-end guitar, look into the Bourgeois guitars, especially if you're in that kind of that Collins area where, let's see, that might be another long story. Let's see if the audience has time for another long story here. Let me catch up with the room here. So my first guitar was a red upper from a Strat copy. Traded 63 Mustang. You trade the guitar for the car. Yeah, that's tough. There's also a Falcon guitar. Yeah, I bet there is. Guitar names and car names kind of go hand in hand. So, what I'll do, I got one more story since I'm monologuing. I got one more story to do with Collins in general and Martins and all high-end guitars. A friend of mine who has a studio in Moscow, so people know I used to live in Moscow years ago, and I worked in a studio there, and he was like, I think he gave me like $5,000. Bring us back, next time you come back, bring back a really good acoustic guitar, like a Martin. He said that, we want a really good Martin. And I was like, I can find a really good Martin for that. Took the money, got on the plane, came to the U.S., and just the idea of shopping for a super high-end guitar was just a great idea. Even though $5,000 these days isn't even a lot of money. But I thought it was a lot of money, and so I went out looking. I started at the Music Emporium in Lexington, Massachusetts. They got a lot of Martins. They got Collins, and they got one other. Who's their other big brand? It could be someone could shout it out there. Or they have one more contemporary, big brand kind of Martin-esque guitar that they really push hard. And so I went to the store, tried out some Martins. I was like, I know what a good Martin's supposed to sound like. And I didn't say it out loud, but I'm like, And they're like, try a Collins, what was the other one? This story kind of has a. Anyways, I tried the new guitars. I was like, it's all right, And I just left and said sorry, and then I repeated this several times. I would find people who had guitars and try them out, and say, this isn't the one, and I kept kind of the same thing with Music Emporium. I said, this sounds crazy. Someone gave me $5,000 to buy a really good guitar, and that's what I'm gonna do. And if you got one, I'm not kidding. Get the money in my pocket. So serious customer here. Show me what you got. This went on for several months, and I just came up with nothing. And just before I gave up, I was about to go back to Moscow. I think I just called them. I was like, hey, remember me? I was the guy looking for, a really nice used Martin. And oh, yeah, we got something like that right now. Yeah, something just came in. You might want to check it out. And okay. So I drove down there, picked up it was a 1982 Martin. Picked it up, strummed an E minor chord on it, And I was like, bring, see, that's it. It's better than everything on that wall or that stuff or that stuff. So a really good Martin from the era of good Martins. Even 82 is not considered the era of great Martins, but this was a real Martin that sounded great. And I was like, case closed. I'll take it. And it was like $3,000 or something. Literally, case closed. So when comparing to those super high-end guitars, now having said that, we got an HD28 next to it, and man, that bourgeois guitar is nice. It is twice as much money. So that is to be considered. The Martin is a good Martin, but the bourgeois is exceptional. All right, let's catch up with the room. How difficult is the retail business? Which part of the business is most important? New or pre-owned instruments, since there are less and less shops, more and more big dealers. That's a good question as well. So this store was always dependent on the used inventory. Had very few lines of, we had the Godin line for years, and just a few, good mid lines, but no high end stuff. And we get all of our high end stuff through the market and the grapevine, and it worked out fine for the first 29 years. And then it just got really in the last, say, like 5 or 6 years, it got really hard to get good used inventory. People were either selling guitars on their own or holding on to them, or I don't know what. But Gary's used inventory, just inventory in general, because he depended on the used inventory so much, it's just inventory quality went down. And so part of when I came on here and bought the store from Gary, I just kind of knew we're going to have to get Fender. And I made that happen. And then we got Gretsch as well, and Hofner, and just more brands, more of the new stuff, just to really fill the walls a little more and just kind of up the quality of the entire inventory. So brand is important in guitars still. And new guitars are most of the sales, because they're most of what we stock right now, because we can't get our hands on enough great old guitars. Now, the great old guitars sell because we also price them reasonably. And we do some consignment sales because we're really forward. We're really honest about the consignment sales. We make sure the price is good. We make sure everyone's happy on both sides of the deal and that kind of thing. And we don't like sit on guitars for years. There's nothing that's in the store that was here 2 years ago. There's probably about 6 things that were here a year ago. Like everything moves, and everything's priced to move. So that is the music store. So used instruments are more important than ever because they're hard to get than ever. But whereas in the past we would have 50-50, right now it's maybe 20% used and 80% new. We did add a bunch of brands. We now have 100 pedals in stock instead of 10. So I made a conscious effort, like more pedals, more of everything, really, just more stuff. And because as a small store, you just have to puff yourself up and be big. People, everyone talks about lamenting, like, oh, the old mom and pop store, where they'd give music lessons in the back, and they'd just kind of the convenience, the corner store of guitar stores. This is these stores have disappeared because their business model sucked. I miss them because it's just a nice place where music lived and spirit lived and the community came and went, and of course it's a wonderful thing, and that's something we aim for here. We're definitely conscientious of that, but if someone calls us a mom and pop store, I get offended because we're not just selling Austin guitars and off-brand stuff from KMC. We've got bourgeois guitars and Martin and Taylor and Gibson used, and we get all sorts of Fenders and Gretches, and we got the Hofner basses and the Godin, the whole Godin line, including the Fairmont and all the solid wood guitars. And so we aspire to be not just the funny little store. And you can't survive like that anymore. That's why I was in the business model is not good because Well, thanks, William. Says this store is the best. Yes, we are the best store. That's how you can survive. You just be the best. So people are concerned about inventory. Yes, we've always, the reason I bought the store was reputation. The store had a sterling reputation, just being honest, straightforward. Something I like doing in all sorts of retail, especially guitar. And I sleep great every night. I get continuous sleep every night because I don't worry about anything because we deal fair in every direction. Um, and that's important. It's an integrity that people perceived in the mom and pop tradition kind of thing. But first of all, my wife, who would be the mom in this situation, has no interest in guitar at all, never sets foot in the store. And so it is not a mom and pop because my son's mom is not interested in guitar or guitar stores. So this is my endeavor. I would say that, independent music stores. That's what we call ourselves. That's what it says on the masthead on Instagram, an independent music store. Not a non-chain store, but the mom and pops, you run into them a little bit still, and they are cute and quaint. But we offer things that at the going rate, just about, and we offer a lot more. We aspire to offer a lot of interesting things. We curate things a little more. It's not just what we can get, it's what we want to get. And when we find cool things like mandocellos or tenor guitars, we stock them because they're cool and you should know about them. If I lived on the East Coast, I'd be there all the time. I reckon this channel is very interesting. Well, thank you for that. I do on the channel. I do a bunch of informative videos as well. They're about 10 minutes long. You can go find them, and that's part of the community thing too. I'm not necessarily. I'm here showing you some guitars, but usually we're not selling things. We're just talking guitar, giving information, answering any questions. That's what we do all day here. People come in, they just have questions. Is this, and then we just sometimes we just answer the questions and send them on their way. Every person who walks in the door is not a cash revenue source, but they're all customers. And so we're doing okay. The pandemic was actually good for guitar, as many people heard. So there's that aspect to it. And we kind of modernized in some ways, but not modernized in others. If we put something on Reverb or eBay, it's because it hasn't sold in the store. Everything gets a chance to sell in the store first. All the best stuff is in the store. And I talked to people about this too, but check the Instagram. A lot of the stuff shows up there before it shows up on the site. Within a few days, everything gets up on the site. If you just come in and browse around, it just takes a minute, and you do see some things that come in and that haven't been put on the site yet. So we're not like an autumn. Things don't get kept in the back room until it's ready for to be premiered on all forms of media. So the fresh stuff, if you see on Instagram and Facebook, everything goes up on the site that sells for more. Everything that sells for more than $400 will be definitely on the site. There's a few $100 guitars don't go up there. Certain pedals don't go up there and stuff like that, just because it's just not worth the effort to do. And we are primarily an actual brick and mortar store. There's literally bricks and mortar on the front wall holding this place together. So that's the goal. Always welcome and always helpful. Thanks. So have tenors in stock. We're waiting on the tenors again from those fine people over at Recording King. They're on back order. We got 2. They both sold. Ordered 2 more. Should be here real soon. They just ran out. That is a run on tenors. So when they come in, we'll let you know. Opinion on CV Jaguars. The Classic 5 Jaguar. We have one right here. And my opinion is this is the best deal in the store. It's amazing that you just asked about this because so it's classic vibe, which means, Asian made, Squire branded. It says Fender on the back. Definitely made commissioned by Fender. These are great. I mean, the Jaguar, for some reason, so it's got the bound neck. It's got the Jazzmaster controls, the single coil pickups. Everything's just right. This particular one is weighted well. I like the neck finish. Fingerboard might be walnut or something, or I don't know if it's rosewood. It could be, but it's a light rosewood if it is. A lot of brown in there, but it could be walnut or something. But it's a nice fingerboard. It's bound. These things are great. We're selling this for $4.99 with a bag. So, my opinion is high. Now, having said that, one more little thing about the Classic Vibe, I will say. We got some of the original Classic Vibes in, used. They're great. You should buy one. The Telly over there, we get the Telly over here, and all these Classic Vibes are just fine. But the older ones came out of someone's collection. I don't know if they selected them better or if the materials are better. I don't know. They're just a little bit better. So while supplies last, we have 4 Classic Vibes from the early teens in the store, and check them out. The Classic Vibe, I would say a little rundown of the Classic Vibes. You can see that one from there. This Squire, that is the it's not Classic Vibe. It might be an alternate dimension or universe or whatever they call that. Paranormal. There we go. It is the Telecaster body with maple neck. That's a great guitar. The Supersonic, also great guitar. The Tornado, not my guitar. The Squire Jazzmaster I like because it doesn't have all the extra switches. And if you fall in love with it, it's lightweight. So it's the same thing with the Squire Jazzmaster over there is an Affinity, which means the body's thinner, which makes the whole thing lighter weight. And that's what some people really fall in love with Squires. It's the Affinity series because there's less body mass and the resonance is a little different, and that's something they're drawn to. I would like to get a beaten up but structurally sound 0018 at a good price, if you could keep that in mind. All right. 0018, slightly beat up but in good condition. All right, so it's now been 1 hour, and I've been monologuing the whole time. Man, I am tired. So we're going to call it a night for tonight, folks. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be back next week with Gary or somebody. We'll make sure there's someone for me to bounce off of, that I'm not bouncing off the walls. But thanks for hanging in there with me. Thanks for stopping by. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. It's important that you like it while you're watching it and not after the fact. So when it's live and people like it, YouTube tells other people that that's a good thing. And so that does help this algorithmic world we live in. And subscribe to the Instagram and the Facebook and all that stuff too. Because like I said, sometimes deals come up there first. So if you want to see everyone's going to just snap a picture. This just came in. And someone will go, oh my God, I got to have that. And it's gone that day. So it's a good place to catch that. And have a good night. We'll see you all next week. It's Wednesdays at 6 o'clock, Guitar Talk. And stand by for the end. Say goodnight, Gary.